I sat in the hallway at midnight, my back against the cold wall, listening to Cassandra's cruel laughter echoing from what used to be my bedroom. The manila envelope in my trembling hands contained documents she had no idea existed. This house, which I built with my own calloused hands 40 years ago, felt like foreign territory now. My son Marcus slept obliviously downstairs while his wife celebrated evicting his father to make room for their toddler's new playroom. But I knew something they did not. Tonight, everything would change. The real owner was about to reclaim what belonged to him. 6 months earlier, life looked completely different. I had been managing just fine on my own since my beloved Eleanor passed 3 years ago from a battle with breast cancer that took everything we had emotionally. As a retired construction foreman who spent 4 decades building homes across suburban Denver, I took pride in the 2-story colonial I constructed in 1983. Every beam, every nail, every square inch of the 3-bedroom house on Maple Street represented sweat, equity, and love. My son Marcus had always been the gentle type, more interested in books than blueprints. At 32, he worked as a real estate agent, though his career consisted mainly of failed property flips that left him drowning in debt. When he called that spring day, his voice cracked with desperation. "Dad, Cassandra's pregnant, and we're about to lose our apartment. Could we stay with you temporarily? Just until we get back on our feet?" What father could refuse? I welcomed them with open arms, immediately converting my workshop into a nursery, complete with fresh paint in soft yellow and a handcrafted crib I spent weeks perfecting. I gave up my home office so they would have privacy, moving my desk and filing cabinets to a corner of the basement. Cassandra seemed sweet enough initially. 28 years old with auburn hair and green eyes that sparkled when she smiled, she thanked me repeatedly for my generosity. During her pregnancy, I cooked meals, drove her to appointments, and assembled baby furniture with the enthusiasm of a first-time grandfather. When baby Tyler arrived, I felt genuine joy holding that tiny bundle. But something shifted in Cassandra after the birth. The grateful young woman transformed into someone I barely recognized. She began making subtle comments about the house being outdated and needing young energy. She complained about the hardwood floors being too noisy, the kitchen appliances being ancient, and the bathroom fixtures requiring updates. "Donavan, this place feels like a museum," she said one morning over coffee. "Tyler deserves a modern environment to grow up in." Marcus, exhausted from sleepless nights and work stress, always sided with his wife. Whenever I attempted to address her increasingly demanding behavior, he would pull me aside. "Dad, please try to understand. She's adjusting to motherhood. We're both under tremendous pressure." The requests escalated rapidly. First, she wanted me to remove family photos because they made the walls cluttered. Then she insisted I change my television viewing habits because my shows were inappropriate with a baby in the house. When I suggested they might be more comfortable in their own place, she laughed dismissively. "We're not going anywhere anytime soon. This arrangement works perfectly for our family." Her use of our family struck me as peculiar, as though I were somehow external to the equation. 3 months after Tyler's birth, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. While cleaning the kitchen, I found a stack of papers hidden beneath a cookbook. My hands shook as I read documents bearing my forged signature, attempting to add Marcus to the house deed through a fabricated family trust scheme. The letterhead belonged to some legal office I had never heard of, and the signature looked convincing enough to fool a casual observer. I said nothing but immediately scheduled a consultation with Harold Brennan, the attorney who had handled Eleanor's will. Harold, a silver-haired gentleman in his 70s with sharp blue eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, examined the documents with growing alarm. "Donavan, this is elder fraud. Someone's attempting to steal your property through forged documents. Have you signed anything recently?" "Absolutely not. I would never transfer ownership without understanding exactly what I was doing. We need to act carefully. Gather evidence, but don't confront anyone yet. This level of sophistication suggests planning and possibly accomplices." That evening, I returned home to find Cassandra waiting in the living room with her arms crossed. Tyler played quietly in his bouncy seat while she fixed me with a cold stare I had never seen before. "Donavan, we need to discuss living arrangements. Tyler's outgrowing the nursery, and frankly, you're taking up space we need for our growing family." My heart pounded as I realized Harold's warnings were manifesting faster than expected. "What exactly are you suggesting?" She pointed toward the staircase with the confidence of someone who believes she held all the power. Pack up. That room belongs to my child, not you. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at Cassandra, certain I had misheard her declaration. Excuse me? You heard correctly. Tyler needs space to grow, and that master bedroom is perfect for a toddler's room. You can sleep on the couch like the guest you are. Guest, in my own home. The word echoed in my mind as I struggled to process the audacity of her statement. This woman, who had lived under my roof for 6 months without paying a single bill, was ordering me out of the bedroom where Eleanor and I had shared 37 years of marriage. Cassandra, this is my house. That bedroom holds decades of memories. She rolled her eyes with theatrical exasperation. Oh, please, stop being so sentimental. Dead people don't need bedrooms. Living children do. The casual cruelty in her reference to Eleanor left me speechless. I watched her pull out her phone and start scrolling through furniture websites, as though the conversation was finished. I've already ordered new furniture for Tyler's big boy room. A race car bed, a toy chest, and a play table. Deliveries scheduled for Friday. When Marcus arrived home from work an hour later, he found my belongings stuffed into garbage bags lining the hallway. I sat on the floor beside them, feeling like a refugee in my own home. Dad, what's going on? I explained Cassandra's demand, hoping my son would recognize the insanity of the situation. Instead, he glanced toward the living room where his wife waited with crossed arms and an expectant expression. Dad, Tyler needs space to grow. You're being selfish holding on to that big room when you're just one person. Just one person. My own son had reduced me to a problem requiring a solution. Marcus, I built this house. Every board, every nail. This isn't some temporary arrangement anymore. Well, maybe it's time to consider other options. You're getting older, and taking care of this place is becoming too much for you. Before I could respond, Cassandra appeared with Tyler in her arms, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Donavan, I've invited my sister Paula and mother Dorothy over tomorrow to help redecorate. They're so excited to see Tyler's new room. The message was clear. The decision had been made without my input, and my feelings were irrelevant. That night, I retreated to the garage with a sleeping bag, surrounded by tools and memories of building projects with Eleanor. Unable to sleep, I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood to clear my head. What I discovered during that midnight stroll changed everything. A for sale sign stood planted in Mrs. Patterson's front yard next door. Curious about neighborhood property values, I approached to read the details. The real estate agent's name was Jennifer Walsh, and her contact information was prominently displayed. On impulse, I called the number, expecting voicemail. To my surprise, Jennifer answered on the second ring. Jennifer Walsh, Walsh Realty. Sorry to call so late. I noticed your sign next door to my house on Maple Street. I was wondering about current market values in the area. Oh, you must be referring to the Colonial at 1522 Maple. I'm actually familiar with that property. Are you the elderly gentleman living there? My blood froze. I'm sorry, what? The owner, Cassandra, mentioned her elderly father-in-law would be moving to assisted living soon. She's scheduled 3 showings for next week. Beautiful property. She said she's planning some updates before listing. I hung up without another word, my hands trembling with rage and disbelief. Cassandra had been showing my house to potential buyers, representing herself as the owner, and planning my removal to a care facility. Racing back to the garage, I searched through boxes until I found my old construction surveillance equipment. If Cassandra wanted to play games, I needed evidence of exactly what she was planning. The next morning, I watched through the kitchen window as Paula and Dorothy arrived with measuring tapes and fabric samples. 3 women stood in my bedroom, planning its transformation while discussing my future as though I were already gone. Once he's settled in memory care, this place will be perfect for Tyler, Dorothy said, her voice carrying clearly through the thin walls. Cassandra, you've done such a good job managing this situation. I called Harold immediately, requesting an emergency meeting. When I arrived at his downtown office, his secretary ushered me in with obvious concern. Donavan, you look terrible. What's happened? I explained the night's discoveries, watching Harold's expression grow increasingly grave. This is escalating beyond simple fraud. They're planning to steal your entire life. We need to move fast. Harold's investigation revealed a conspiracy more sophisticated and cruel than I could have imagined. Within 24 hours, His private investigator had uncovered a web of deceit that left me questioning how I had missed the warning signs. "Donavan, sit down. This is worse than we thought." Harold spread documents across his mahogany desk like evidence at a crime scene. Bank statements, credit reports, medical records, and legal filings painted a picture of systematic theft and manipulation. "Cassandra has opened 3 credit cards in your name, accumulating $32,000 in debt. She's been intercepting your mail for months, including Social Security and pension checks." I stared at unfamiliar signatures on credit card applications, each one a skilled forgery of my handwriting. Purchase records showed expensive baby furniture, designer clothing, and restaurant bills I had never approved. How is this possible? I never applied for these cards. She had access to your personal information, your Social Security number, and your daily routine. She knew exactly when mail arrived and which bills you expected. Harold pointed to a stack of bank statements showing mysterious withdrawals every 2 weeks, each one for exactly $499. She stayed just under the $500 threshold that would trigger automatic fraud alerts. This woman understands financial crime. But the most devastating revelation came when Harold opened a manila folder marked Confidential Medical Records. Marcus has been completely complicit. He signed affidavits with Dr. Patricia Hoffman, claiming you're showing signs of dementia and require supervised care. My family physician's name on legal documents felt like a betrayal. Dr. Hoffman had treated our family for 15 years, delivered Marcus, and cared for Eleanor during her final illness. Patricia would never participate in something like this. She didn't. Cassandra scheduled appointments using your insurance, forged your signature on consent forms, and described symptoms you never exhibited. Dr. Hoffman has been documenting what she believed were legitimate concerns about your cognitive health. Harold produced phone records showing dozens of calls between Cassandra and various elder care facilities. She's been shopping for the cheapest memory care option, specifically facilities that accept Medicaid patients. She wants you declared incompetent, gain legal conservatorship, sell this house, and commit you to long-term care while keeping your life savings. The scope of the plan was breathtaking. $400,000 in savings, pension benefits, Social Security income, and my property would all fall under her control once a judge declared me mentally incompetent. There's more. Marcus has been adding mild sedatives to your morning coffee for the past 2 months. I thought about the drowsiness I had attributed to grief and aging, the confusion during family conversations that seemed uncharacteristic. They've scheduled a competency hearing for this Friday with Judge Robert Sterling. If you appear disoriented or confused, which the sedatives would ensure, the judge could grant temporary conservatorship immediately. Harold leaned back in his leather chair, his expression mixing professional concern with personal anger. "Donavan, they've planned every detail. Cassandra researched your finances, your medical history, your daily habits. This isn't opportunistic crime. This is premeditated elder abuse designed to steal your entire life." I felt physically sick imagining the conversations between my son and his wife, plotting my downfall while I cooked their meals and cared for their child. What can we do? The hearing is in 4 days. We fight back with everything we have. But I need you to understand something crucial. Once we start this process, there's no going back. Are you prepared to potentially lose your relationship with Marcus permanently? I thought about Eleanor's final words to me, whispered through pain medication and failing strength. "Promise me you'll never let anyone take advantage of your kind heart. You're too trusting, Donavan. People will use that against you." She had seen something in Cassandra that I missed, a predatory instinct disguised as sweetness. "Harold, my son chose his side when he decided to drug my coffee and lie about my mental health. Eleanor warned me this day might come. Then we start gathering evidence immediately, but we have to be smart about this. One mistake, and they could accelerate their timeline." Harold outlined our strategy: hidden cameras, financial audits, medical evaluations, and criminal fraud charges. We had 4 days to build a case strong enough to stop them and protect other potential victims. One more thing, Donavan. Cassandra underestimated you completely. She sees a grieving old man who's easy to manipulate. She has no idea who she's dealing with. As I left Harold's office, I realized the scared, confused man sitting in the hallway last night was gone. In his place stood someone Eleanor would recognize, a fighter who protected what mattered most. The investigation began immediately. Harold connected me with Detective Angela Martinez, a specialist in elder fraud cases who had seen situations like mine dozens of times. Her advice was simple: document everything, but act natural. Predators like Cassandra depend on their victims staying quiet and isolated. The moment she realizes you're fighting back, she'll accelerate her plans or disappear entirely. I returned home that afternoon carrying a bag from Radio Shack, telling anyone who asked that I was updating my old radio equipment. In reality, Harold had provided me with sophisticated surveillance devices designed to capture audio and video evidence. While Cassandra napped with Tyler, I installed tiny cameras in the living room, kitchen, and hallway. The devices, no larger than buttons, would record everything happening in common areas of my own home. That evening, Marcus worked late showing properties while Cassandra made phone calls she assumed no one could hear. The first recording would prove more valuable than I anticipated. "Paula, everything's going perfectly. The old fool has no idea what's coming." Her sister's voice was equally callous through the speaker. "Are you sure Marcus will go through with it?" He seemed nervous last time we talked. "Marcus does whatever I tell him. He's terrified of losing Tyler and me. Once the judge declares Donavan incompetent Friday, we'll have $500,000 in this house. The nursing home costs $1,200 a month, which leaves us plenty to live comfortably. What if he fights the decision?" Cassandra's laughter was chilling. "With what? I've destroyed his credibility. His own doctor thinks he's losing his mind. His neighbors believe he's dangerous, and his son confirms the dementia diagnosis. No judge will side with a confused old man over concerned family members." I gripped the recording device, realizing how thoroughly she had isolated me from my support network. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Bill Rodriguez, my neighbor for 20 years, knocked on my door with obvious discomfort. "Donavan, I need to ask you something, and I hope you'll be honest with me." Bill was a retired firefighter, a straight-talking man who had helped me through Eleanor's final months. "Of course. What's on your mind?" "Cassandra mentioned you've been having memory problems, forgetting to turn off appliances, wandering around confused at night. She's worried about you living alone." The extent of her deception was staggering. "Bill, I've never had any of those problems. When did she tell you this?" "Last week, when I mentioned seeing you working in the garage late at night. She said family members are often the last to recognize cognitive decline." I realized Cassandra had been systematically poisoning my relationships throughout the neighborhood, preparing witnesses to testify about my supposed mental deterioration. "Bill, I need to tell you something, but I need your word you'll keep this conversation confidential." Over the next hour, I explained the fraud scheme, showing him copies of the forged documents and credit card statements. Bill's expression shifted from skepticism to outrage. "Jesus, Donavan, she fooled all of us. Susan Chen mentioned Cassandra's been collecting your mail, saying you asked her to help manage your correspondence." The mail carrier, a federal employee, had unknowingly participated in mail theft because Cassandra presented herself as a concerned daughter-in-law helping with my affairs. "There's something else," Bill continued. "She asked me to call Adult Protective Services if I noticed you acting confused or agitated. She said family members sometimes need outside intervention to accept reality." Cassandra had recruited my own neighbors as unwitting accomplices in my destruction. That afternoon I visited my bank to review account activity with manager Thomas Anderson. Thomas, a friend of Eleanor's from church, welcomed me into his office with concern. "Donavan, I'm glad you're here. We had an unusual situation last week." "What kind of situation?" "Cassandra attempted to access your safe deposit box using a power of attorney document. Our legal department flagged it as potentially fraudulent because the signatures didn't match our records. She had tried to steal Eleanor's jewelry and the government bonds we had purchased as emergency savings." "Thomas, I never signed any power of attorney. That document is forged." "We suspected as much. The paper quality and formatting seemed inconsistent with legitimate legal documents. We've frozen access pending further investigation." I realized Cassandra's timeline was accelerating because she was encountering unexpected resistance to her plans. That evening, Marcus came home early with red eyes and the defeated posture of a man carrying unbearable guilt. I found him sitting alone in the kitchen after Cassandra had gone upstairs with Tyler. "Dad, I need to tell you something." For a moment, I hoped my son was ready to confess and ask for forgiveness. The coffee you've been drinking contains mild sedatives. Cassandra said it would help you sleep better and reduce anxiety about Mom's death. Even his confession was wrapped in Cassandra's lies. Marcus, do you understand what you've been doing to me? I thought I was helping. Cassandra said grief can cause confusion in elderly people, and the medication would ease your transition into a more supportive living situation. He actually believed he was acting in my best interests while poisoning me and stealing my property. Son, there's something you need to know about your wife. Dad, please don't start this again. I know you don't like her, but she's trying to help our family. I realized Marcus was too deep in Cassandra's manipulation to recognize the truth. Tomorrow, I would have to choose between protecting myself and maintaining any hope of saving my relationship with my son. That night, I lay awake in the garage, listening to Cassandra's voice through the surveillance equipment as she finalized plans for my destruction. Brett, everything's set for Friday. The judge will grant conservatorship and I'll have access to everything. Yes, I'll wire your share once the house sells. This has been easier than we planned. Brett. She was coordinating with someone else, someone who expected a financial payout for my stolen assets. I called Harold immediately. We need to move faster. There's another player involved, and I think she's planning something for tomorrow night. Don't worry, Donavan. We're ready for her. Harold's strategic plan unfolded with military precision. By Thursday morning, we had assembled a team including Detective Martinez, bank investigator Patricia Chen, and court-appointed psychiatrist Dr. Michael Torres, who would conduct an emergency competency evaluation. Donavan, I need you to understand something crucial before we proceed, Harold explained during our morning meeting. Once we file criminal charges, Cassandra will realize the game is over. She might become dangerous or try to flee. What about Tyler? He's innocent in all this. Child Protective Services will intervene if necessary. Detective Martinez has protocols for protecting children in these situations. Our first move involved freezing all financial accounts pending investigation of fraudulent activity. Thomas Anderson submitted bank records showing unauthorized withdrawals and forged signatures, triggering automatic federal oversight. The second phase required Dr. Torres to conduct a comprehensive psychiatric evaluation, proving my mental competency beyond any doubt. Dr. Torres is one of the most respected cognitive specialists in Colorado, Harold explained. His evaluation will demolish any claims about dementia or mental deterioration. But our secret weapon came from an unexpected source. While researching Cassandra's background, Harold's private investigator Claire Thompson made a discovery that would change everything. Donavan, you need to see this. Claire spread marriage certificates across Harold's conference table, each one telling a different part of Cassandra's story. Your daughter-in-law is still legally married to her first husband, Brett Sullivan, in Vancouver, Canada. She never filed divorce papers before marrying Marcus. Bigamy. Cassandra had committed federal crimes by entering a fraudulent marriage while already married to someone else. There's more. Immigration records show she's been claiming single status to maintain her visa eligibility. Married to an American citizen, she would have different legal requirements. Harold leaned forward with satisfaction. This gives us multiple federal charges: immigration fraud, bigamy, elder abuse, identity theft, and mail fraud. What about Brett Sullivan? According to phone records, he's been her partner in targeting elderly homeowners across 3 states. They research potential victims, she marries into families with assets, and they systematically drain resources before disappearing. I thought about Marcus, genuinely believing he had found love while actually becoming the target of professional criminals. Harold, there's something else I need to tell you about Eleanor's final gift. I explained about the treasury bonds Eleanor had purchased secretly during her final year, worth $200,000 and accessible only by me. She had hidden this inheritance, specifically because she distrusted Cassandra. Eleanor left a handwritten letter explaining her suspicions. She believed Cassandra married Marcus for money and would eventually destroy our family. Harold smiled grimly. Your wife was protecting you even after death. Those bonds represent security Cassandra can never touch. That afternoon, I made the hardest decision of my life. I confronted Marcus directly, showing him copies of all the evidence we had gathered. Son, I need you to understand who you really married. The forged documents, bigamy certificates, and recorded phone conversations broke through Marcus's denial like water through a dam. He sat in stunned silence as I played Cassandra's voice describing their plan to steal everything and abandon him once the money was secured. "She doesn't love you, Marcus. You and Tyler are tools she's using to access our family's assets." My son broke down completely. Years of manipulation and gaslighting finally revealed for what they were. "Dad, I thought I was protecting my family. She said you were getting confused and needed professional care. She made it sound like love." "Marcus, there's something else. Tyler isn't your biological son." The DNA test results Claire had obtained showed Brett Sullivan as Tyler's father, making the child another element of Cassandra's deception. "Everything I believed was a lie," Marcus whispered through tears. "My marriage, my son, my relationship with you. She destroyed everything." "No, son. She damaged things, but we can rebuild. Are you willing to help me stop her?" Marcus looked up with determination I hadn't seen since he was a child. "Tell me what you need me to do." Thursday evening, I implemented the final phase of our plan. Instead of avoiding Cassandra, I confronted her directly in the living room, while Marcus listened from the kitchen and recording devices captured every word. "Cassandra, I know about the forged documents, the credit cards, and your plan to steal my house." She laughed dismissively, confident the competency hearing would resolve everything in her favor. "Donavan, you're confused. Tomorrow, a judge will ensure you get the professional care you need. Fighting this will only make things harder for everyone. I also know about Brett Sullivan and your real marriage." For the first time, her confident facade cracked. "I don't know what you're talking about. The bigamy charges, the immigration fraud, the systematic elder abuse. You picked the wrong family to target." Cassandra's face twisted with rage as she realized her careful plans were unraveling. "You crazy old man. No one will believe you over concerned family members. Marcus will testify about your mental deterioration, and Dr. Hoffman has documented your cognitive decline." Actually, Marcus has something to say about that. My son emerged from the kitchen with tears streaming down his face. "Cassandra, I know everything. The sedatives, the forged documents, the lies about Tyler's father. It's over." She stared at Marcus as though seeing a stranger. "You weak, pathetic man. You'll never see Tyler again. I'll disappear with him, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering where your son is." "Tyler isn't his son," I said quietly. "He's Brett's child, and DNA tests prove it." Cassandra's world collapsed in that moment. Her carefully constructed web of lies, manipulation, and fraud faced complete exposure. "Pack your bags," I continued. "You have 24 hours to leave my house voluntarily, or I'll have you arrested for fraud, bigamy, and theft." She stormed upstairs, slamming doors and shouting threats no one would take seriously anymore. That night, Marcus and I sat in the kitchen where so many family meals had been shared, talking honestly for the first time in months. "Dad, how do I rebuild my life after this?" "The same way I rebuilt mine after losing your mother. One day at a time, with the support of people who really love you." Outside, Detective Martinez and her team prepared for tomorrow's arrests. Cassandra had no idea that Thursday night was her last night of freedom. Friday morning arrived with the crisp clarity that follows a storm. Cassandra prepared for the competency hearing with the confidence of someone who believed victory was inevitable. She dressed carefully in conservative clothing, applied makeup to project concern and responsibility, and practiced expressions of loving worry about her elderly father-in-law's declining mental health. What she didn't know was that Judge Robert Sterling had already reviewed our evidence packet and canceled the hearing pending criminal investigation. I stayed in the garage, listening through surveillance equipment, as Cassandra made final preparations for what she believed would be her triumph. "Paula, I'll call you from the courthouse once it's official. The moving truck can arrive Monday to clear out his belongings." Her sister's excitement was audible through the phone speaker. "I still can't believe how perfectly this worked. Brett's going to be so proud of how you handled everything. It was almost too easy. Old people are so trusting and desperate for family connection. Marcus never suspected anything because he wanted to believe I loved him." At exactly 10:30, Detective Martinez's team surrounded the house. I watched through the window as unmarked cars blocked both ends of Maple Street and officers positioned themselves at all exits. The doorbell rang at 10:35. Cassandra answered with Tyler in her arms, expecting Harold or court officials to discuss hearing procedures. Instead, Detective Martinez stood on my front porch with an arrest warrant and backup officers. "Cassandra Williams, You're under arrest for elder fraud, identity theft, bigamy, and immigration violations." The color drained from Cassandra's face as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. "This is a mistake. I'm a concerned daughter-in-law trying to help my family." "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Tyler began crying as officers led his mother away, not understanding why strangers were taking the only parent he had ever known. But the morning's surprises had only begun. Judge Sterling called an emergency hearing based on our evidence of judicial fraud and attempted manipulation of court proceedings. Harold, Detective Martinez, and I arrived at the courthouse where Cassandra sat in custody, finally understanding the scope of what she faced. Court-appointed psychiatrist Dr. Torres testified about my comprehensive mental evaluation, confirming complete cognitive competency and emotional stability. Mr. Williams shows no signs of dementia, confusion, or mental deterioration. He demonstrated sharp analytical thinking, clear memory retention, and appropriate emotional responses during extensive testing. Marcus took the stand next, confessing to his role in the conspiracy and describing months of emotional manipulation and coercion. "Your Honor, I believed I was protecting my family. My wife convinced me that my father's grief was causing dangerous confusion. She said the sedatives were medication to help him cope, and the legal documents were to ensure his financial security." The prosecutor presented bank records, forged documents, and recorded phone conversations demonstrating the systematic nature of Cassandra's crimes. But the most devastating revelation came when Claire Thompson testified about Cassandra's true identity and criminal history. "Your Honor, the defendant is legally married to Brett Sullivan of Vancouver, Canada. She entered a fraudulent marriage with Mr. Marcus Williams while still married to her first husband. DNA test results confirmed Tyler's paternity, proving another layer of deception in Cassandra's elaborate scheme. Furthermore, our investigation revealed a pattern of elder abuse targeting homeowners across Colorado, Utah, and Nevada. The defendant and her legal husband have defrauded at least 7 families using identical methods. Cassandra's defense attorney requested a recess to review the overwhelming evidence, but the damage was complete. Federal prosecutors had already filed charges that would result in significant prison time and immediate deportation upon release. But the day held one more surprise that even I hadn't anticipated. During lunch recess, Paula and Dorothy arrived at the courthouse to support Cassandra, unaware that Detective Martinez had been monitoring their phone conversations. "Dorothy Williams, you're under arrest as an accessory to elder fraud and identity theft." Cassandra's mother had actively participated in forging documents and opening fraudulent credit accounts, believing she was helping secure her daughter's future. "Paula Stevens, you're also under arrest for conspiracy to commit elder fraud." Cassandra's sister had provided crucial assistance by researching potential victims and establishing fake references for credit applications. When court resumed, the prosecution presented evidence of a family conspiracy spanning multiple states and involving numerous victims. The Williams family weren't criminals of opportunity. They were professional predators who targeted vulnerable elderly people with systematic precision. Real estate agent Jennifer Walsh faced license suspension and potential charges for knowingly participating in fraudulent property showings. "Miss Walsh, did you verify ownership before scheduling showings of Mr. Williams' property?" The person who contacted me provided detailed property information and seemed knowledgeable about the house's history. "Did you confirm her legal authority to sell the property?" I assumed family members had authority to act on behalf of elderly relatives. Her assumption had nearly cost me everything I owned. As afternoon shadows lengthened across the courthouse steps, Cassandra sat in federal custody facing 5 years in prison, immediate deportation, and permanent separation from Tyler. Child Protective Services had already contacted Brett Sullivan, who expressed willingness to assume custody of his biological son. Tyler would grow up in Canada with his real father, protected from the criminal influences that had shaped his first months of life. Marcus stood beside me as we watched his former life being dismantled piece by piece. "Dad, how do I live with what I did to you?" "You start by understanding that you were a victim too. Cassandra is a professional manipulator who targeted our family specifically because she recognized our vulnerabilities. But I drugged you. I signed documents claiming you were incompetent. I chose her over you. You chose what you believed was love and family security. Now you choose differently. That evening, we returned to our house on Maple Street, where removal crews were loading Tyler's belongings for shipment to Vancouver. I found myself feeling sad for the little boy who would grow up without ever understanding why his mother had disappeared from his life. But I also felt the profound relief of a man who had reclaimed his home, his dignity, and his future from people who planned to steal everything that mattered. 3 months later, justice had been served with the thoroughness it deserved. Cassandra received a 5-year federal prison sentence for elder fraud, identity theft, immigration violations, and conspiracy charges. Upon release, she would face immediate deportation to Canada and a permanent ban from entering the United States. The judge's words during sentencing echoed through the courtroom. The defendant systematically targeted and exploited vulnerable elderly individuals with calculated cruelty. This court finds her actions represent a profound betrayal of trust and human decency. Brett Sullivan received a 7-year sentence in Canadian federal prison for his role in orchestrating the multi-state fraud operation. Authorities discovered their scheme had victimized 12 families across 5 years, stealing over $2 million in assets and life savings. Dorothy Williams, Cassandra's mother, accepted a plea agreement for 3 years probation and full restitution of stolen funds. Paula Stevens received 2 years in minimum security prison and permanent prohibition from working in financial or elder care industries. The financial recovery exceeded even Harold's expectations. Federal asset forfeiture laws allowed authorities to seize and redistribute everything Cassandra had purchased with stolen money. I recovered every dollar taken from my accounts, plus penalties and interest that added $20,000 to my savings. The fraudulent debts disappeared from my credit report, and the 3 credit card companies faced federal investigation for failing to verify application signatures properly. But the emotional healing proved more complex and meaningful than simple financial justice. Marcus began attending therapy sessions with Dr. Sarah Coleman, a specialist in trauma recovery and family reconciliation. Our weekly conversations, initially awkward and painful, gradually evolved into the honest relationship Eleanor had always hoped we would develop. "Dad, I've been thinking about Mom's final words to you. She tried to warn us both, didn't she? Your mother saw through Cassandra's performance from the beginning. She recognized predatory behavior disguised as charm. Why didn't you tell me about her suspicions? Because you were grieving too, and you needed to believe you had found something good in all that pain." I hoped Eleanor was wrong. Marcus discovered that his attraction to Cassandra stemmed from unresolved grief over losing his mother. Dr. Coleman helped him understand how vulnerable people often seek replacement relationships that feel familiar, even when those relationships are destructive. "I wasn't looking for a wife," he admitted during one of our conversations. "I was looking for someone to fill the emptiness Mom left behind." "Son, that emptiness never gets filled by another person. You learn to carry it differently." Our healing included honest discussions about Tyler's absence from our lives. Marcus struggled with losing the child he had believed was his son, even though DNA proved otherwise. "I loved that little boy. It doesn't matter whose genes he carries. Love is never wasted, Marcus. Tyler experienced genuine care during his time with you. That's something positive in this whole situation." Child Protective Services reported that Tyler was thriving in Brett Sullivan's custody, being raised by Brett's parents in Vancouver while Brett served his prison sentence. The little boy would grow up in a stable environment, protected from the criminal influences that had shaped his earliest months. Meanwhile, I discovered unexpected sources of community support. My neighbors, initially embarrassed about being deceived by Cassandra's lies, rallied to help repair relationships she had damaged through manipulation. Bill Rodriguez became a close friend, stopping by regularly for coffee and conversation. We started a neighborhood watch program focused on identifying and preventing elder fraud schemes. "Donavan, I feel terrible about believing her stories about your mental health." "Bill, she was convincing because she understood exactly what concerned family members would believe. That makes her dangerous, not you gullible." Susan Chen, our mail carrier, provided crucial testimony that led to federal mail fraud charges. She also implemented new protocols for verifying identity before accepting mail collection requests. "Mr. Williams, I should have asked for written authorization before allowing someone else to handle your mail." "Susan, you were trying to help what appeared to be a concerned daughter-in-law. Cassandra exploited your kindness and professionalism." Dr. Patricia Hoffman, our family physician, expressed profound relief when the truth emerged. She had been genuinely concerned about my cognitive health based on Cassandra's fraudulent symptom reports. "Donavan, I'm so sorry." The symptoms she described seemed consistent with grief-related depression and possible early cognitive decline. "Patricia, you were doing your job based on information from what appeared to be a reliable source. You couldn't have known she was lying. Dr. Hoffman now requires all family member reports to be verified through direct patient communication, preventing similar manipulation in the future. Harold Brennan helped me establish a comprehensive estate protection trust that prevents future exploitation attempts. The legal structure ensures my assets remain secure while providing clear inheritance guidelines for Marcus. Donavan, what you experienced is becoming increasingly common as criminals develop more sophisticated approaches to elder fraud. What can we do to protect other families? Education and early intervention. Most victims don't recognize the warning signs until significant damage has occurred. This conversation inspired my next chapter. I partnered with Detective Martinez to establish community education workshops focused on recognizing and preventing elder abuse. Our monthly presentations at senior centers, community colleges, and neighborhood associations have reached over 500 families. The key to protection is understanding that criminals often present themselves as helpful, concerned family members or caregivers, I explained during these sessions. They gain trust gradually, then exploit that trust systematically. Our workshops cover warning signs like unexpected financial account changes, pressure to sign documents quickly, isolation from friends and family, and claims about cognitive decline that family members don't recognize. Trust your instincts, Detective Martinez tells audiences. If something feels wrong about how you're being treated, seek outside help immediately. Marcus has become an advocate for victims' families, sharing his experience to help others recognize manipulation tactics used by financial predators. I want people to understand how sophisticated these criminals are. They don't just steal money, they destroy relationships and exploit love itself as a weapon. Our story has been featured in local newspapers, television news segments, and national elder abuse prevention campaigns. The response from other victims and their families provides ongoing motivation for our advocacy work. But the most meaningful aspect of our recovery has been rebuilding the father-son relationship that Cassandra nearly destroyed forever. Marcus moved back into the house temporarily while searching for his own place, and our daily conversations filled gaps that had existed long before Cassandra's arrival. "Dad, I realize I never really processed Mom's death properly. I jumped into marriage as an escape from grief instead of working through it. Son, there's no timeline for healing. Your mother understood that love doesn't follow schedules or expectations. What would she think about how everything turned out? She would be proud of how you recognized your mistakes and chose to make them right. That's the measure of character that mattered to her." Eleanor's treasury bonds provided a foundation for Marcus's fresh start. I used half the money to help him purchase a modest home near downtown Denver, close enough for regular visits but far enough to establish his independence. "Dad, I can't accept this money. You'll need it for your own security." "Marcus, your mother saved this money specifically for family emergencies. Helping you rebuild your life is exactly what she would have wanted." The remaining funds went toward establishing the Eleanor Williams Elder Protection Foundation, providing legal assistance to families facing financial exploitation. On the first anniversary of Cassandra's arrest, Marcus and I visited Eleanor's grave to share the story of justice served and relationships restored. "I think she would approve of how we handled this," Marcus said, placing fresh flowers on her headstone. "Your mother always believed that truth and love would triumph over deception and greed. She was right, but it required us to fight for what mattered most." As we walked back to the car, I reflected on the lessons learned through our ordeal. Trust must be earned through consistent actions, not demanded through manipulation. Family loyalty means protecting vulnerable members, not exploiting them. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is refusing to enable destructive behavior, even when that refusal causes immediate pain. Today, our house on Maple Street feels like home again. Family photos line the hallways. Eleanor's garden blooms with renewed care, and laughter echoes through rooms that once felt heavy with deception and fear. Marcus visits regularly, and we're rebuilding traditions that Cassandra's presence had disrupted. Sunday dinners, holiday celebrations, and quiet evenings sharing memories of Eleanor create new foundations for our relationship. The master bedroom where Cassandra demanded space for Tyler's playroom now serves as a memorial to Eleanor, filled with her books, artwork, and the love letters we exchanged during 40 years of marriage. Sometimes I sit in that room, reading Eleanor's final letter warning me about Cassandra's true nature, and I marvel at her wisdom in protecting our family even after death. Donavan, she had written, if someone enters our lives demanding immediate trust and loyalty, claiming to know what's best for our family better than we do, question their motives carefully. Real love doesn't require the destruction of existing relationships to prove its value. Her words saved not only my financial security, but also my relationship with our son, and my faith in the possibility of justice in an often unfair world. Looking back, I understand that Cassandra's greatest mistake was underestimating the strength of a family founded on genuine love rather than manipulation and control. She saw vulnerability and assumed weakness, not recognizing the difference between trusting and helpless. The elderly man she targeted for exploitation became the architect of her downfall because she failed to understand that experience, determination, and moral clarity represent formidable weapons against predatory behavior. I want to ask you something important. Have you ever experienced a situation where someone you trusted took advantage of your kindness or vulnerability? How did you find the strength to stand up for yourself and protect what mattered most to you? Your stories of resilience and justice could inspire others facing similar challenges. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of your own experiences with family betrayal and recovery, please like this video to help others find it. Subscribe to hear more stories about ordinary people finding extraordinary strength in difficult circumstances. Share this with friends or family members who might benefit from understanding the warning signs of elder fraud or family manipulation. Thank you for listening to my story and allowing me to share the lessons Eleanor and I learned about love, trust, and the importance of protecting those we cherish most. Remember that real family stands together against threats from outside, and justice, though sometimes delayed, rarely forgets those who fight for what's right. May you always have the wisdom to recognize true loyalty from clever manipulation and the courage to defend your dignity when others try to steal it along with everything else you've worked to build.